Welcome, everybody. Namaste, namaste, namaste. Welcome to Deep Dialogues, which, as you will remember, unless you are new to this podcast, is an opportunity where I invite global soul stewards into deep conversation with me. And here is a very notable global soul steward, Stefan Burns, who is reaching everybody's attention at the moment for the impactful nature of his work, which is highly original because he actually arises out of the established field of science as a geophysicist. But you'll soon see that not only is Stefan a really handsome guy, he has some really handsome things to say about cosmology and the way that we are seeing these great shifts of cosmological activity affecting planet Earth. And I know in my pre-show investigation into Stefan's very extraordinary emergent videos, that you bring out so many videos to help us understand what's going on, that there's this amazing interface with what you're seeing vis-a-vis Earth activity, particularly the quaking substance of our planet, and how this is being triggered by Three-Eye Atlas, by solar winds, by extraordinary plasmic activities. So it's a great pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Stewart.
Where did it all begin?
I think it's kind of like a snowball rolling down a slope, because I can go back in time and see how that little nudge in this direction, helped me to get closer and closer to what I call my true soul purpose life mission path. I could probably take a few words out of that, but regardless, it really did kick off though in 2020. As we were joking about before, you're like, what do I call you? I'm like, well, you can call me an Age of Aquarius geophysicist. And to keep it really simple, not everyone knows astrology, but you have what's known as the midheaven in your chart, which is the uppermost part. So when you're born, it was up in the sky directly overhead. That's seen as like one of the most important points in like your makeup astrologically, and really speaks to how like the world sees you. And I have my Saturn conjunct my midheaven right at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So with COVID and that whole period of time, just 2020, better even call it a great mutation, because that's when we had Saturn and Jupiter meet at 0 degrees of Aquarius. There's a whole bunch of activity there. So I definitely got activated by that, and all the formative work that had been done before that, because I was exploring into different things for years before this. All of a sudden they activated, and then Pluto shifted and moved directly over, and it's been there now since 2021, 22. It's very slow moving. And so it's very interesting, because Aquarius is the kind of the rebel, the new ideas, but it is also still the domain of Saturn, and Saturn is typically seen as a scientist. That's one of his archetypes. So here I am kind of coming out of the blue as this, not completely unconventional scientist, but definitely not like a normal, I went to this place and got a PhD and, I'm really entrenched in the system. Got just enough experience with that kind of world to then take the good stuff and then just embarked upon a totally new path. But I love the incorporation of all the spiritual stuff too, because there's so much, like so many gems in that when I study into it, it just keeps reaffirming a lot of the scientific stuff. So I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't look at both sides.
Yeah. And you mentioned that the midheaven axis had led you to a great understanding of your purpose. And this, I actually see a lot of people in soul reading situations or counseling situations. Many people are experiencing a rough ride at the moment, and one of the big questions on all of their lips is, I don't know what my purpose is. So a lot of people who are listening will be really fascinated by, Stefan has a purpose. So what did you perceive your purpose to be?
Well, I would say that's still being figured out. I think purpose is an evolving thing as well. But the key, I have a variety of first principles, and if we go by what what's his name, Buckminster Fuller, he's a absolute genius. He classified first principles as these concepts that are true across all domains and disciplines of the universe, or else it wouldn't be a first principle.
Yeah.
If there's something over here which invalidates it where it's true over there, it's not a first principle. So first principle is true across the board. One of mine, at least at this moment in time, is the concept of just starting. And so if you feel that call, and that's just like a deeper spiritual nudge, whisper, shout, perhaps, to do something different, just because you don't know the end destination doesn't mean that you shouldn't just start. You just start, and it overrides everything. Like, oh, well, I don't know, just start. And so it will eventually get you on the right path. So I felt that pretty strongly. So I just started, and I guess this is still probably pretty early on in the process of just starting. So the long term, 40 years from now, if I get there, right, we hope, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I feel now that I'm on the path. The path evolves. This is my experience, and so long as you're on that path, you'll be taken. And it's not even about the destination, but you'll be taken where you need to be at the right time, etc. So, but right now, that's really coming to. There's a lot of amazing work that's been done by so many individuals and organizations over the past 50, 100 years. I mean, going further back too, but really the past 50, 100 years that hasn't been given a fair shake or really been given a proper look or examination or presentation to the public. Notably, for example, like planetary geometry. I mean, astrology has been around since the beginning. It is the oldest science. And then the split of astrology and astronomy, is artificial, but astrology has been around since the beginning. But planetary geometry is kind of connected to that. So a lot of scientists think all of a sudden you're talking astrology and they dismiss it. It's been game changer to incorporate that into my space weather forecast, my Earth geophysical understanding, and all this stuff. So, people have come out with amazing research on that, but they've been, in general, kind of looked at like they're crazy or something. And I see it as also a responsibility of mine, since I am a good public communicator. I understand this stuff and I can track it in real time, and we're seeing the results. Like, you put out the forecast and then it happens. That's the best proof you can have that something works. And so it's bringing in a lot of prior knowledge and understanding from these genius people and manifesting it strongly into our reality now. Because we're going to need this knowledge and understanding going forward as we move into this more highly awakened, conscious 5D universe, right? That is more cosmic and less just purely materialistic, just of the Earth. The sun consciousness that we're expanding to is the first step. We've been there before. The cosmic consciousness, we've been there before. We still have that with Aborigines and everything, but it's going to become a global phenomenon. It's increasingly becoming so. And we're going to need this understanding.
Okay, so in a sentence, can you synthesize what you believe this awakening to be and how it embraces the fundament of the indigenous people?
Just a sense that we're one resonating part of a larger whole, and we are a microcosm. We are a microcosm of that macrocosm, and it's all connected together.
Okay.
So by looking within, we can look without, right? I mean, all these concepts.
So right at the core, we're talking about unity consciousness and the unique intervention, so to speak, of astrology and the broader issue of cosmological archetypes, which is really what you're referring to in First Principles, means that we're all beginning to see the interrelated nature of the cosmic waves and the cosmic cycles. Yeah, as far as purpose is concerned, I fundamentally believe, and this is also my teaching from the Hermetic principles and from the angels that work with me, that our purpose is to optimize our creativity full of love and joy. And, I have surprisingly now over 70 years of life on this planet. And I can see that actually every 10 years, the cycle of my astrological and living process changes. So I'm not doing what I was doing when I first started. I mean, I started off life Firstly, trying to understand the 3D language, because I spoke a multidimensional language and saw angels and fae and spirit and so forth, and found, being a dyslexic and synesthete, I found it very difficult to interpret what was going on before me. However, language and sound enticed me, and I began to realize that sound was at the core of creation, because I could read people through their voices. And I started life as an actor, but I'm not doing that now. I mean, I trained actors for many years, but I've extrapolated out yourself, because we're being called by the extraordinary nature of what the cosmos wants of us. And I know that in our pre-show chat, you were about to share, and I said, why don't we wait until we come on air? You were going to share a wonderful dream that you had just the other day at 5 o'clock in the morning. Perhaps we could go into that, because it allows us to understand the majesty and the magic of who you are and why you are weaving the spell that you're weaving for us, which is all based on tangible possibilities.
Yeah, the dream I had this morning, and I don't say this lightly, because I have quite a lot of dreams. Some are more vivid than others. Some are lucid. Some are, just kind of blurry, and you don't take much from them. We have to be careful with how we label, for example, this information that we get from astral realms and other dimensions, because things are more fluid up there. But it honestly felt prophetic. And like short term, not maybe 20, 30, 50 years out, but like the immediate future, what we could expect. And so I wrote it down. I woke up I set my alarm for 4 this morning. It was today. I set my alarm for 4 because we had this superstorm that basically hit Earth. And the configuration was such that we weren't getting a lot of aurora, but I was like, it may change. At 4 a.m. I'll wake up to see if we have aurora. When you do that, you kind of sometimes interrupt your sleep cycle and make it easier to have dreams. So that's what kind of triggered this. Mm-hmm. But also we did have this, giant geomagnetic storm that was happening. So this solar energy was super strong, the convergence of solar earth energy. So the fact that this happened today is really interesting. So I got up at 4, I went back to sleep, but the dream blended into effectively that I was still awake. And I was talking to my family, and I have my dream notes off to the side. I wrote this down right afterwards. I was talking to my sister, my dad, and my aunt, when all of a sudden, and there was the crescent moon was in the sky. So off to the left, we saw the crescent moon, which is what it is right now. It'll also be a month from now, right? So this is like a crescent moon phase. Then I looked off, and I saw the sun being eclipsed. And so it was this very perfect circle, orange, everything, like orangish, yellowish, and then it was eclipsed and it was dark in the center, but it was an annular eclipse because there's the ring of light on the sides. I was like, whoa, okay, that's crazy. And we saw the new moon as a crescent, so what's eclipsing it? That's kind of the idea. Then beyond just the eclipse, there were these other points of light too. And so my mind's like, wait, what am I seeing? Like, this is not multiple suns, but then I realized it wasn't multiple suns. It was actually the other planets as well, which is what we have happening right now. They're all on the other side of the sun. So there was this eclipse and then all these other points of light. And then the sun started going nuts with this massive explosion of energy, and the ground was shaking. And so the entire Earth was shaking like crazy, and I could feel the translational movement of the Earth. It was almost like it was shifting like this. Mm-hmm. And I'll get back to, this is just relaying the dream, but my interpretations of that are separate. So it was like the ground was shifting as all this energy is coming in. I could feel the radiation hitting me because I was looking out the side door of like our Florida room, seeing the sun, and it was just pelting the body. And I was thinking to myself, like, I'm not sure that's good for me or not, but it's just what it is. Like, I have to see this. And I pulled out my old phone. I happened to have my old phone on me, and I was taking a video of this thing. I was like, this is incredible, because if I don't take a video, no one's going to believe me. So I was videoing the whole thing. And this is all on the East Coast of the United States too. So it was with the location I am right now. So earthquake on the East Coast is not common. It's definitely not common. And this is like bright fireworks display times 100, and you could hear it, feel it, visceral, everything. And then going down So then it kind of shifted though. So the sun and all these points of light kind of shifted into this more like etheric, slightly transparent volcano. It wasn't necessarily a volcano, but it had that kind of structure. And the burst of light that was coming from the sun, like this massive ongoing solar explosion or explosions, turned into these multicolored gems that were flying out and littering across the landscape. And they were also kind of transparent, and they were like yellows and oranges and reds, and they were flying out. And then everything, it had this metaphysical nature to it, this like volcano and the gems and everything. Then everything stopped. I felt that pressure and that energy that was hitting me release. And just before that was going on, it was almost like we were shifting. The earth was still shaking the whole time, like a huge earthquake. And it was like we were shifting past the volcano. So the volcano is in the distance, and we were like moving by it like this, which is kind of a clue to us, I think, what that could be. And then it was done. The backyard was flooded after this, but not like crazy, like we're worried, but it was flooded. And there wasn't this sense of fear throughout the dream. I mean, it's certainly surprising, but there wasn't really a sense of fear. And then once the solar explosions turned into those gems, it actually was like just a sudden understanding and awareness that these were gifts being given to us. From what? It's hard to say.
Okay, so, I mean, there's the narrative. And it's immensely detailed.
Yeah.
So I think we can safely say that this was a lucid dream. So if you were to take the 5 pinnacle points of truth within the journey of the narrative, because we know that our consciousness works metaphorically. And so although you're seeing very literal lucidity in the images, what do you feel are the metaphoric truths that are being shared? Like the last one, which is the gems, are obviously great teachings that we're being given, great gifts that we're being given by the cosmos.
Well, I get the sense that it was speaking about the present moment right now, because this was occurring during this crazy solar storm impact. Yeah. But I think it was also speaking about the next 3 months, because I did see all the points of light with the sun, which would be where the planets are right now. And that's not going to be as precise in like 3 months' time, though we will have Saturn and Neptune there with the sun. So it could still fit that definition. But regardless, the planets, it was this combination of energy from the planets and the sun that made this possible. And then the eclipse also, I feel like, could be talking about the upcoming eclipse in Aquarius, which is right when we have some significant shifts occur as well,
which
astrologically.
Is February the 18th?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's just in Aquarius, isn't it? Before it slips into the further side. Anyway, as you were saying.
Yeah, so I feel like that time period is implicated because of that.
Yeah.
And then and the earth shaking is like the earth receiving this energy. It could also be like literal earthquakes, because that is one of the main expressions of energy from the earth. But the volcano and the gems, I don't get the sense that that was an actual volcanic eruption. I get the sense, if I had to pin it on something, and all these interpretations, I'm still working through it. I wasn't planning on making a video on this till later, but you're the perfect person to talk to about this. So that's why I mentioned it. I have a sense that that could be like energy and information and new paradigm shifts and consciousness upgrades from Interstellar Object 3I Atlas, because it's had a tremendous amount of jet activity, and we're going to be passing through where it had its perihelion and its dust and plasma stream remnants in March and April. But really, I guess you could say February through April. So that's the full convergence, where we have the eclipse in February, we have the big activation of Saturn, Neptune, and the sun in March, and then we're also moving through this 3 Atlas dust stream. We could have literal things coming in from our space environment from 3 Atlas during that time period. We don't know what's out there in space. Exotic materials maybe, but I think it's more of a consciousness, energy, information thing.
Well, it's sort of, I concur in the sense that it ties in with a dream that I had at the end of last year, which then became a broadcast because I do a weekly transmission where I sit in front of the camera and just speak from the angels, the 12 angels of Atlantis. And their statement was that there is a blue wave that is going to be appearing on planet Earth, or is going to be saturating planet Earth, and that will become visible, a blue wave of plasma, which is essentially being activated from the temples of light in the Pleiades and Sirius, which is, two intergalactic presences that are extremely aware of what's taking place within our consciousness and wish to assist. This supra intelligence is so benign, is so full of love, is so full of compassion, and the unity consciousness that you were talking about earlier on. And that when this blue wave arrives and moves across the surface of the planet, there's going to be a vast awakening of people, meaning that the veils will just simply disappear or dissolve, and people will suddenly become aware of, this is the truth. And so therefore reality is recomposed, is reconfigured in the moment because we feel it to be utterly true. And then there is an arrival of a blue lady, which I believe is the goddess Hathor, who is part of the communion of the divine feminine principles, the priestesses of Isis. And so Mary is there, Magdalene is there, Hathor is there, Isis is there, Diana is there, Sophia is there, Diana as was the Princess of Wales. So there are essentially 7 archetypes that emerge as one, but they're going to be sending their herald or their ambassadress, and this blue lady will arrive. And sharing it with Dan, it's also configured by the fact that there's a red planet. This is going to take the first 3 months of this year, and a red planet appears above the Giza Plateau, and this is when she actually is seen by the majority. And there will be a wave of Shakti that will pass over the planet, rather similarly to the exposure that we had when Diana passed, which is now nearly 30 years ago.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
a lot of people are having these sort of dreams and downloads and more. So
there's
it's not a
shit
vacuum.
basically. There's a lot of shit happening, and I mean that in a very pleasurable way. There's a lot of stuff happening. So where do we go? Let's, because lots of people are very concerned about what they visibly see in the correctional facilitation of our 5 major establishments, and are very moved and disturbed by the warfare and the conflict and the disturbance that we see terrestrially. So perhaps we can actually attune to that, to bring in healing, to bring in calming, to bring in a caressing notion that actually it's fundamentally all going to be okay. But all of our systems are changing. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, to go back to the dream really quick, I did get this sense of how this was a very fiery and like passionate and not militaristic, but just a super energetic frequency and broadcasts, right? That could express itself that way, right? Very Aries, but instead it was expressing itself in this more benevolent way. And so that also helped me, I'm feeling like tie it down to the next few months, and that a lot of people right now are worried about the next few months. But in fact, we may be given all these gems from, from source instead, that are going to be make the world a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Unquestionably. The angels are saying all the time that this is not about collapse. This is about correction. So that we move to the principles, the first principles that we literally feel touched by in the deepest way. do as you would be done by, that love is all there is. And so, therefore, what we need to do is to find a way of really orchestrating our fear and recognizing that when we return to source at a point of death, it's actually a huge celebration rather than the woe-begone aspect that we tend to connect with vis-a-vis loss. And I say this with great compassion, of course. I work regularly with those people who are moving through death sequences as a result of cancer, or alternatively, miraculously recovering because they wait to the fact that they don't need to die of cancer. But of course, it's a great ritual. As we know, living is ritualistic, and the birth mechanism is one of the great rituals, just as the dying mechanism is, so that we can really reconvene the substance of loss and dispel the neuroses of separation, which keeps us contractually tied within the prison of the ego, rather than seeing that we can use duality to move into the glory of what life is all about. I see you nodding, so I feel you converge with some of these thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, at a minimum, see, one of the issues with like the scientific community is that there's something that they can like grasp onto, or like, oh, we don't have the math for it. It's like it doesn't exist. It's nonsense. But all the ideas that you just relayed and that way of life and our interaction with other people being more heart-centered, right? That is the right way to go forward. Like that is just where we need to go if we're going to continue to not only like evolve and ascend, but just to survive.
Yeah.
So so while we may not have like hard this, that, whatever scientific, I don't, stuff on this, is just it deeply resonates, and that is the consciousness that we had in the ancient past. So we've gone through these cycles, and we're coming out of a low cycle, it seems, and as we continue to go up, I think it's just natural that more and more people are going to. We may not fully understand this stuff, but it just feels like I love it when you have those moments where you just instantly are struck with an undeniable truth. It's so liberating. That happened during the stream. You've had the experiences. I've had the experiences. Most people have. I would say probably everyone's had at least one moment where they don't know how it's true, why it's true, right? But it's just, you just know. And those are beautiful moments. I think those are coming in more. Maybe those are the gems that are being broadcasted.
Well, I see that as being the wave of fire in the wave of red light, the way that you described it in your dream, a great wave of passion and the zeal that carries us towards truth that is not a debatable substance. It is actually an archetypal force that is, dare I say, an absolutism within our process. As we know, when we know, because we know, that we just know that this is real. And then we need to develop the linguistic of being able to communicate to whomever is important in our lives, whether it be our significant others or indeed those people that you and I are speaking to, the broader community around the world, to reassure that this truth is not up for grabs. Which, of course, the pixelation of opinionation that arises purely out of the duality of intellect, the two hemispheres warring with one another, leads one into the expression of ego, rather than the determining factor that you were just sharing of the fact that this is all about realizing that the heart is the seat of the soul. And so the more that we can come together in our hearts, then the more we're going to feel healed by the process rather than in crisis. Yeah. So as you look at what's taking place at the moment in the heavens, and you see this wonderful intervening agent called 3i Atlas, what do you feel is the principal purpose, the truth of 3i Atlas?
I think the 3i Atlas is not as much of a direct influence as maybe some people think, but I don't know. But we have this planetary alignment, all this solar activity and more. I don't think it needs to be that directive agent. I think it could just simply hold its unique, highly conscious interstellar resonance and imbue that into our local sphere, our solar system, and that in and of itself does the work. Just like you can have a room of people, and some people just have an energy and an aura to them that they can walk in and change the energy of the entire space, and they don't have to necessarily say anything or do this whole thing. It just comes with them. We could use Jesus as an example. So that's kind of my perception and understanding of Three Eye Atlas, is that it's definitely not as direct of a meddling influence. That's not even the right word, but right, it's not really getting in there, but it's positioning itself such that it's always at the right place at the right time, close flyby to Mars, opposite side of the sun of Earth during its perihelion, its closest approach, super close flyby to Jupiter, reworking with those male archetypes, as we have this divine feminine wave that's also coming in, this blue wave. So yeah, I just see a lot of inspirational, optimistic things coming in, and Three Eye Atlas holding that resonance, I think, is really, really key. This volcano, I think it speaks to, in the dream, I think it speaks to how it's going to be like a volcanic eruption of energy. Like it'll be sudden, it'll be really, really intense. But again, it's nothing to be worried about, because it was a very good, inspiring, benevolent, loving energy. But when it happens, at least if this stream is a guide, it's going to be volcanic in nature. It's going to be sudden, really, really just like out of nowhere, but not out of nowhere.
Yeah. And because, I've witnessed your wonderful videos on YouTube, and of course you've spoken very intelligently and very broadly about all of the research that you've done and how volcanic activity is appearing all over the globe. But specifically, it seems, around the San Andreas Fault, which of course we know is one of the pivotal fault lines in on our planet. Do you see other areas of the world that are going to be contributive to what you've just described?
Well, we've been seeing like swarm activity up in Cascadia. I just think I think people realize this, but also the influence of the West Coast of the United States over global culture is tremendous.
Yeah.
It is one of the, how that culture is spread out, and being from the Bay Area, how that culture spread out since the advent of the internet and the technological age has been incredible. And there's a lot of duality there. And so the West Coast of the United States needs to be pioneering leaders in what we put out in our consciousness and more, because it has this global distribution.
Yeah.
And so as these changes unfold within us societally, consciously more, I think they also show up more materialistically with the Earth, because there's a resonance there. Often it's odd, but we sometimes see this connection between like earthquake activity and geopolitical activity. And don't really ask me how, but they just seem to be resonant together. It's like a morphic resonance there. And so the West Coast seems to be getting more active energetically. And if Gaia is broadcasting her higher consciousness frequencies up through that part of the globe to influence those people, and then that broadcasts out more generally, maybe that's the mechanism. But I think it's beyond what I can, just kind of dream up. It's beyond that. Other places, though, Japan's been very, very active, and Africa's been active with the Great African super plume in the Rift Valley. We've been seeing a lot of activity there, and that's where some really ancient civilizations like Ethiopia are, and perhaps the Ark and the Covenant. Like there's a lot of stuff there, and the Western mindset doesn't really often look outside of the United States, Europe, but there's a whole other world out there. And then also just there's always a lot of activity in places like the Pacific Islands, Hawaii and Tonga, Rarotonga, and these locations, Fiji, Samoa. Like there's a lot of activity happening out there, and just because not that many people live there doesn't mean that they don't have a big impact on the planet too. And they're really working very closely with the energies of the ocean, the land, those feminine archetypes, Hawaiian Islands, the rich culture there, and their cosmogony with the different gods, Haumea and Pele, and more. Like, there's this more in resonance understanding, I feel like, with these other Earth, with these cultures, and so that's spreading out as well.
And what is your greatest hope within all of this activity?
Well, I would hope that we have a limit in the amount of like destruction and lives lost with earthquakes, which has generally been the case with 2025, with a bunch of activity, but in general in locations that were pretty remote. So that's been great. There were earthquakes that affected, for example, one in Afghanistan was like a 6.2, and that was pretty destructive, but it wasn't a 7.5 over or under Islamabad or something. Like, it could have been a lot worse. So, and the big earthquakes that have hit Japan overall haven't affected them in a significant way, like in 2011. So more and more people, because I have people watching my channel from around the world, a lot of light workers, and they'll comment and say, like, we are holding the grid. There's a lot of people doing the work, just like yourself, like myself, in a variety of ways and expressions. With this solar storm, it had this incredibly strong, the one that just hit had this incredibly strong magnetic field, which was equivalent to the Carrington class solar flare of 1859 in terms of the magnetic field strength. It wasn't as fast, but it was near Carrington level. But it flipped, to get kind of sciencey, it flipped into this positive configuration instead of being negative. If it had been a negative configuration, the effects would have been intense. Like, probably power grids going down, severe satellite telecommunication issues, bioelectric effects. And people commented saying, like, we were in the energies working with the light grid to promote a positive outcome. And some people may look at those people and be like, oh, they're wackos, but these people are actually in meditation doing this work, and that was the result. So I don't think it's hurting. I think it's helping, and more people are taking it upon themselves to do these sort of tasks, because you can do it anywhere. You can do it at home, meditate, enter into that space with a collective, yourself, whatever. Like, it's really wonderful, the awareness that we're rising into of how we can work together, even though we may not be in the same room, same language, right? But there is this communal network, like a conscious internet, you could say, that more people are tapping into. It's early days, it feels like, but it's really, been around forever. So
Yeah. But we're reconnecting with this. We're reconfiguring this and realizing that it is an empowering measure, because I believe that where we're really being drawn to is that we're moving from carbon-based bodies into a crystalline body. And we will be nourished and resourced by the crystalline grid of the planet. So it feels to me that light workers, those people who are already moving into an awareness of the crystalline matrix of their own form through the chakra system, through the flow of the endocrine and also the neurological systems within our body, opening up the pranic cord, that we plug into the grid and automatically bring about vast changes. One of the changes that I witnessed is that when I began broadcasting a weekly transmission from the Angels of Atlantis, which was in August, September of 23, the reason why I started was because their statement was that there would be 3 days of darkness, that there would be a force that would be penetrating across the surface of the planet, and that we needed to be prepared for this 3 day of darkness, because all, as you were saying just now, all cellular communications, all satellite communications would go down, and as a result of that, we would not have electricity, we would not have, etc., etc. For 3 days, that would be reconfigured. What's actually happened as a result of all of the work that many people, light workers, have done around the planet is that that is no longer necessary. It is no longer necessary to to awaken people into reframing or reshaping their own consciousness, and therefore the physical consciousness of what our planet is all about. And so there is hope. We have this great power that we're just beginning to tune into. And certainly we've noticed, because on every high day or holiday, holy day, I offer a 33-minute global meditation. And over the last 3 years, the amount of people that are attending, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And in fact, this March, I'm going to release an awareness of the fact that I want to gather together 33,000 people for the summer solstice, to come together online and chant for the healing of our lives, the healing of the grid, the interconnectivity of what unity consciousness is all about, just to see what's happening. I know a colleague of mine is trying the similar endeavor of bringing together 144,000 rainbow light warriors. So I thought I'd try for 33. Obviously, numerologically, those two numbers are rather significant. So you spoke very broadly about what you're seeing on the outside in terms of answering my question about hope. What do you see about the inside of you? I mean, how have you changed by moving into the broadcast of all this extraordinary information? Because we know you're doing extraordinarily well in drawing people to you magnetically, rather than just electrically sending out the energy. Many people are being drawn. So what's happened in your own life? What's changed?
I think you have to, at least I've been paying more attention to internal processes, and also greater compassion. So there are like a direction of movement and travel, and you may have setbacks along the way, but so long as you just keep improving every single day, like that is the journey and you will get there. And I will say, by all of a sudden being in the public sphere, you have a lot of, as you know, right? You have a lot of attention and energy directed towards you, and you have to format and, center yourself and work with your own energy field in order to handle that. So it's been a tremendously empowering process. A lot of love coming in, which is incredible. But for any of the lower expressions, that energy has to get worked with somehow. And so that has helped me to better understand where I could get triggered and to overcome that and see things more clearly. Because if something really doesn't affect you, it doesn't trigger you. If there's like a deep truth, for example, like let's say someone lies about you online, but deeply that's untrue. It's just not who you are. It's just a fantasy fabrication that they made up. It may be unsettling that someone can just say that and basically get away with it, but it shouldn't necessarily trigger you, because you're a sovereign individual and you're in your own power. So there are things that can get brought up that do touch on things, which then presents new healing and work to do. So it's been a tremendous opportunity and like a growth accelerator, you could say. So I've come a long way. I mean, there's still work to be done, of course. It's a lifetime thing. But I used to look at, let's say, if someone was putting out bad information, is like they need to do a better job at being more accurate. And now I'm like, I'm just happy that they're bringing awareness to this subject. I trust that whoever's watching this could be their baby steps, and maybe they'll graduate to a more nuanced understanding. Or, there's some people in my field that have been doing this longer than me, and they don't really like some of the attention I've been given suddenly, popularity, whatever. And it's like, they could be like kind of throwing hate at me. But I've learned to just in general be grateful to those people for having cultivated a awareness, understanding of some of these fields like space weather, and they were laying good groundwork, and now there may be a task placed upon them to do some work as well. But I should just in general, like, what's the best frequency I can hold, and that's like gratitude in this instance. So because it helped, helped me to then create my platform, which I'm hoping helps create other platforms for other people. So,
Yeah. And it was the old adage is that a prophet is never hailed in his own land.
mm,
And so, within for
yeah,
you, within the jurisdiction of your extraordinary experience of opening up the ideology and the neurology now in a much more specific way, so many people are getting what you're saying. And of course, we're trying to find a way of really conjuring the totality of what unconditional love means. So the only reason why we would criticize adversely anybody such as yourself, I receive it as well. The keyboard warriors can be vicious. As it says in the Course in Miracles, the ego is suspicious at least and vicious at worst.
mm,
And so we see the ego is really triggered in some way. Most of the time, people loathe my style, loathe the way that I sound. And then I get a huge wave of people saying, oh, your voice is so amazing. It's so extraordinary. Well, guess what? I just happen to be one of the leading voice coaches on the planet. And
yeah,
all you have to do is to look at my track record to see the extraordinary people that have been called to me, not because I chose to draw them in, but because the universe brought them to me, starting off in 1980 with Margaret Thatcher and then moving through many extraordinary women to Diana, Princess of Wales, and then da. And I won't talk about the people that I'm working with at the moment because I've signed NDAs. So we're seeing it gives us another opportunity, it seems, that by what you're saying, and I know I'm intending to say this, of being able to, if we are triggered, to see that, good, we've got something to work on. So we're going to move into the positive, or we're going to move into the negative. Are we going to turn the other cheek, or are we going to be aggressive? And so we're given an opportunity to really understand how we can bring about the fundamental nature of the way that we've said 4 times already, that the only way forward is through unity consciousness. And the cosmology is trying to teach us this. And it seems to me that that's the great evocation of Three Eye Atlas, because it has certainly triggered the imagination of millions and billions of people all around the planet. When it first came, I was so intrigued by it that I asked the angels, was this the same level of celebration or awakening of imagination that took place when Halley's Comet first was seen? Forgive me, I can't quote the chronology of that, but it's there in history. And they said, no, this is a very different experience, because now people are beginning to actually see how they can open themselves up to the message of what this inspirational agent is all about. And that could be a figment of our imaginations, that we've actually created it as an agent, as a teacher,
mm.
as a helpmate to really produce some of these extraordinary energies as we move forward. And so what do you see this year for you in this unique field of operation being for you? What do you want to achieve?
Well, I have a overall, at this moment in time, I consider like a responsibility to keep people up to date with what is happening. So I'm grateful for when there's downtime and things are quiet, because right now it's busy. I'm busy. Uh, but I also think it's time to start going beyond just like, a daily update or things of that nature. I would like to get a geophysical observatory set up, at least the first one, but eventually more of a network of them that's independent. Um, and I've learned in life that you can trust other people, but you also kind of can't. At the end of the day, it like just kind of goes on you. So I know that I will just be a truthful, honest, independent person that will put that out there without any like weird filters or agendas, because that's just a first principle of mine. So therefore, I know I can trust me. Maybe other people, they won't be able to like immediately be like, oh, I trust that guy in the data. But I know that at least if I put that out there, that'll be the resonance of it. So as it relates to other organizations and such, I feel like there's a lot of ulterior motives and things. So that's an important thing. And then also, I would like to, I'll probably be traveling more this year, and I would like those travels to incorporate some more geophysical field work at some ancient sites, hopefully, where I'm actually there doing new investigations and maybe finding some new structures and such that help expand our awareness of what the
Mm.
past was. And then also piggybacking with that is, for example, I'll be going to Sweden soon. We're very likely going to have some northern lights there. I would like to do more broadcasts where I'm at the location and then I'm broadcasting that energy of the event out to my audience. When I was in Hawaii in August of last year, we did that a couple times with very limited tech and equipment for the eruptions at Kilauea, and people still loved it. Even though it was like this super pixelated, zoomed in view of the volcano, there's still like 10, 12,000 people watching. So like there's something about this that being like that transmitting antenna and everyone's the receiver, but at the location itself and going to these hot spots, these energy hot spots, and being there when it happens, because I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm adventurous, like I can do it. And there's probably a bunch of other people out there that can do it too. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, I don't know. So if I can at least do some of that work, then that'd be great. So
That sounds really amazing. I'm in full support of you. I hope that dream becomes a reality. And as you've said, you've done it once before in Hawaii during that extraordinary quake or eruption. Do you know Freddie Silva? Have you met Freddie Silva?
Silva, Silva.
Silva, yeah.
No, I may recognize his face, but in terms of the name, it's not ringing any bells.
Well, he's very much a geophysical navigator in terms of the sacred sites, and has some radical information. He really is an extraordinary resource. I'll find a way of putting you two together, because you'll find him you'll meet on a mind level, and then suddenly you'll get very excited by one another, I feel, because of the way that you're perceiving what you want to do in the world to broadcast this extraordinary information. And we have to reach point of completion in our conversation, and I would love to have you back in a few months' time to review what's taking place around March, April, and the great spread of light. But how do we actually find more about you? Do we go to YouTube channel? Do you have a website? What do we need to do?
Yeah, the main place would be my YouTube channel, which is Stefan Burns, StefanBurns. My website is earthevolution.com. I also have an X page, and I'm on Instagram, but I play with these things different amounts, and there's different expressions of what I do there. But before we sign, if possible, I wanted to just ask you, the 12 angels of Atlantis, how did Atlantis differ from us now, and why did it collapse? Like, have they talked to you about that, and what's the lesson to be learned? Like, are we going through a cycle with Atlantis right now and those energies?
Yeah, this is the reason why they're here. These beings, they fondly call themselves the angels of Atlantis, to awaken the imagination of as many people as possible. But actually, they're very ancient beings of light that are known in Kabbalah as the Malakim. And the Malakim means the royal angels, meaning that they're the angels that literally overlight the 12 Melchizedek. Melchizedek meaning the priest kings, the priest queens. So associating royalty or monarchy with the original principle of the hierarchy, which of course we've changed because we see it as being a darkened force as a result of what's happened through our 5 major establishments and the misuse of that power. But originally they were all sacred leaders. And so the ascended masters and mistresses is really what I'm referring to. The White Brotherhood, the White Sisterhood, the Intergalactic Council, these angels over light. So they come at this time to teach us about the completion of the experiment, the cosmic experiment of Atlantis. That we tend to fixate on what took place, as you said, in the form of its collapse. And in fact, it was a point of completion, that it had reached a point of fruition where it was not necessary to go on. And of course, there were all sorts of interrelated features, including the arrival of a great meteorite, which hit the planet. And of course, as we know, the polar axis shifted, and as a result, we went into the ice age. So that a lot of the information post diaspora, because we were living at 12 helix DNA, even towards the end times of Atlantis. So the high priests and priestesses knew where they could literally relocate the varying communities on Atlantis all over the world. And of course, when we look into some of the principal cultures that we're referring to, that started as indigenous formation, but then grew, such as the Mayan or the Egyptian or the Aztec or the extraordinary civilization that became Japan, that these were all, some of the principal points of arrival from the diaspora. So they come to teach us how we can reawaken the 12 helix DNA. And therefore they have a lot to say about the points of completion, which is why they're here, to remind us of who we truly are rather than what we have become. So in short, that's what they're about.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff out there, and I'm glad they're here.
Yeah.
We need maybe 24 or 36 angels.
Well, of course, the number is an associative number with the numerology that we understand, that we're gestating, as you know from the Schumann resonance, that we're gestating from the configuration of 7, which is the planetary resonance frequency, into the configuration of 12, which is the universal resonance frequency. So we're waking up to the fact that we're really cosmological citizens. And therefore we, I believe, evolve as a species of planetary life into recognizing the root seeds within us, that we originally were galactic travelers, and that the whole of Atlantis was made up of galactic travelers who were fascinated by the downloading impressions of the way that we live our life on planet Earth, particularly through the substance of water and oxygen, and how they are sacred principles that we have become detached from and now we're returning to. And of course, one of the things that we haven't necessarily identified is the nature of cosmic flow. I guess we were talking about it at the very beginning when we were talking about the cycles of change that we're beginning to awaken to. Therefore, we're re-innovating or reactivating and moving away from this simple principle of linear time and realizing that time is stacked and it moves in spirals and waves, which is what the angels teach. Yeah, but the principle right at the core of their teaching is that sound transforms and light informs. Right at the core of it is that feeling is the language of the soul, not thinking, but feeling. This has been so enjoyable. Thank you so much for your generosity and bringing your heart and your wonderful presence to this platform. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Stewart. I really appreciate it. I love these sort of conversations. They're much more open than certain other ones. And hope to be back on, after this volcano of inspiration and all the good things occur. But yeah, thanks everyone for...
You're certainly going to be hearing. And yes, thank everybody for tuning in. And well, there will be other extraordinary guests like Stefan. So just tune into the diary and you'll see who's going to be forthcoming. And bless you for being here. From our hearts to yours. Namaste, namaste, namaste. Please do stay there, Stefan. Thank you, Ryan.